Hey yo, what's up? What's up? What's happening? It's your boy CD Rome, live in effect with another episode of Watch Your Narrative podcast. But you are listening to Watch Your Narrative presents the league, episode one, season one. For those who know and those who do not know, of course, myself and a various group of brothers, we have a basketball league that we all love and hold dearly. And coming up very, very soon, we have the first season of the new NBA 2K25. So looking forward to it. Definitely excited. Here recently, this particular league, ZBL, the ZBL league, has announced its captains for this particular season, which in this instance we have Bryant, BMO. We also have Keyshawn, Yodi, Austin, and Josh. I'll tell you a little bit more about these captains as we go along here. The episode that we're gonna do a mock draft. We're gonna do a mock draft. This is not going to be a draft where this mock will not be something where this is who they're going to pick, but this is who I think they're going to pick. I'm going to dive inside the mind of these particular captains and try to see if I can, number one, come up with a pretty accurate mock draft, and then secondly, you know, see if I can throw a little GM assistance there. Speaking of, myself, two-time champ. Not to brag on myself a little bit, but pat on the back. But being a captain is very tough because you got to manage quite a few different things. It's not just the skill. You also got to manage personalities. You also got to manage past history that those particular players may have had with each other, playing style, playing philosophies. I mean, what does the captain want to do? What type of offense does he want to run? So, I mean, there is quite a bit that goes into the captain. It's not easy. It's not something that you can just jump into, or at least I feel like it's not something that you should jump into, and especially if you want to be successful. So, with that being said, the draft order is also announced as well by the commissioners of the league, and the draft order goes as following: number one pick will be Bryant, the number two pick will be Keyshawn, number three pick will be Austin White, the fourth pick will be Josh, and then the fifth pick will be Yodi, who is currently the defending champion of the ZBL league. So I'll tell you a little bit about, for the people who don't know, a little bit about the captains. Yodi, as I just mentioned, two-time champ, two-time league MVP, finally got over the hump last 2K season, and won in the MMA league, and then came over to the ZBL league and won another. So both playing different roles. MMA, more of the number one 1A 1B option most of the time, and then in the ZBL took a back seat to kind of play, to me, probably the third scorer on that team, and at times, I mean, depending on what was needed, could easily jump to be the number one spot. So definitely, the history of Yodi speaks for itself. One of the founders of this particular league, has been dominating for quite some time, but was finally able to get a ring on top of it. Going backwards, Josh, another great player, probably one of the more versatile captains of the group that we have, could easily play 1 through 5. So I think for him, drafting will be really just depending on how he wants to play, but he is very particular, very smart player as well, high IQ. So I know he's going to try to draft some guys that are going to have some high IQ and as he says, not boot. And Austin, just as well as Josh, is very versatile, could easily play 1 through 5. So he'll kind of have, you know, the pick of the litter as well, because he easily, right at this moment, he has a 5. But knowing him, I know he has a 3-and-D guy that's gonna easily could show his face, and then easily he can make a point guard as well, depending upon what after the draft to see what the team needs. And then you got Keyshawn, which that's the one captain that I don't know much about. So I'm really shooting in the dark when I do my mock draft on his side of town. But haven't got an opportunity to really play with him as much. But I know he plays the 4 and the 5 very, very well. Another champion as well. And then of course then we got Bryant, who at this particular moment will play probably the 4 or the 5, depending upon the team and what they need. Bryant is still chasing after, his first title is as well. So without further ado, let's get right into it, fellas. Let's get right into it. I do have some ideas here on what the number 1 pick Bryant Moore could do. And first of all, and let me say this first, because I hear all the conversations that are being held, in the chats, and I just want to make sure I say this, and this is to the captains, all of the captains. Listen, but don't listen. Everybody is going to have their opinions. Everybody's going to tell you the way that you should draft, or you may even have guys that say, hey, don't draft me. Well, guess what? Draft them anyway. If they have submitted their name into the hat and they decided that they want to play and they didn't captain, and I know James was one that said, hey, man, don't get mad with who drafts you, because you could have been a captain very well. And you could easily have been a captain and then maybe chosen someone and said, hey, do you mind taking on the responsibilities of scheduling games? Because I don't have the time for it. It doesn't matter. But you could have chosen your own team, but you didn't. So draft the way that you want to draft. And if guys want to sit a season out, sit a season out. We got more than enough brothers that want to play and participate. So with that being said, number 1 draft pick, Bryant, as I mentioned before, plays the 4 and the 5 very well. So of course, I think for him, the smartest route to go is to go for a guard. And there is a very limited number of competent point guards in our league. And when I say use the word competent, there are really good point guards that you can go into rec with, win games with, but few are proven league leaders from a point guard standpoint. And there's only point guard wise in this draft one that has won, multiple chips at that particular spot, and that's Ajante. I think that is the right, and this is not about him being the best player. This is the best player for this particular captain. Because if Yoke was the number 1 pick, I actually wouldn't. I would say a complete different name for Yoke if he had the number 1 pick. But specifically for Bryant, I think that this pick makes the most sense because of the familiarity. Also to Ajante, which, he had a nice little back and forth with one of the players about being a leader of men. I haven't had the luxury of playing with Ajante yet, but I think that just from pickup and also him playing with my boy JP, listening to some of the things conversations that Dave had, I think he does have that leadership quality that Bryant is going to need on his team. So I think that is, to me, the best pick for Bryant. Then going into 2, once again, this is Keyshawn. This one is the one that I'm not that familiar with. So I'm shooting in the dark here. Hopefully he will jump into the chats a little bit more to kind of do some scouting, so to speak, because if not, he's really going to put himself and whatever team he drafts in a bad spot if he just goes by names and goes by what used to be, because this game is completely different from previous. So hopefully, as a player myself, hopefully, we get a chance to see him a little bit more in the chat since he starts to scout before the draft. But I'm gonna go off of number one. Um, this particular pick is going to be based off of I think of players that Keyshawn has played with. I think preferably he would love to play with Ajante because they have, history. But he's going to pick someone that he can trust as well. Playing a power forward slash center, he's also going to go a guard route, I think, or he should. But in this instance, I'm going to take a little bit of a different route because this guy's going to be a small forward, but he can point from any position. And he is proven as well. He has won a chip at that particular position. We're talking about Greg Griggs. So I think that the number 2 pick will go to uh, Greg Griggs to run the show from the 3-point forward, and I think that that will, to me, will be the best because pick for him because they also have familiarity as well. Third is Austin. Uh, Austin's Austin's a very, very smart player. Um, a lot of people feel like I said a name last night and everybody disagreed. Like, why would he draft that? He's another center. But Austin is a very, very smart player, very calculated as well. Um, and so I think the third pick will be Kyle. It will be the smartest pick. It would be the pick I would make if I was Austin, because I've seen Kyle play point. He's won at a championship as a point and won as a center. Austin is a very, very dominant center. As I mentioned before, very versatile. If it doesn't work out, then hey, he could go play point. Kyle could go play center. And then they're both very, very, very high IQ players. They're both winners. So to me, out of the picks that if Greg and Ajante are off the board, I feel like this would be the best pick for him to choose because the versatility that he can now have with the rest of his draft is endless because now he already has the 2 most important positions check mark, a point and a center that could also possibly play lock if need. So this to me is the best pick. Then we have Josh. Not going to go too much into his pick. I'm just going to say I think his pick will be Petty. Petty wants to play guard this year, point guard. Out of everybody I've played with so far, he has been one of the most consistent jump shooters, very high IQ, very smart player as well. To go with Josh, they have history. They just went to the finals together. They won a championship together. So there's tons and tons of respect and history there. And it makes the most sense because Petty's also a very calculated, smart guy as well. He kind of Josh can be a little volatile at times, so I think that having Petty on that roster would just kind of help out with the team morale as well. Then we go to Yoke. Now this one was a little bit harder for me to think about, and I've also taken into consideration from every captain that I'm speaking of things that I've heard come out of their own mouth as well. So over the course of time outside of Keyshawn, I've spoken with just being in the chats and just listening to every particular captain and also knowing the history of the way that they operate as well. So Yoke is at this moment, shooting guard, small forward. He's also played point guard in the past. So me personally, I think that I've heard him say he wants to lean towards, of course, a center, which that would make the most sense because this is a snake draft. So he's going to have 2 back-to-back picks. One of those picks will be a center. Center spot is so important. You're already going to have, Kyle off the board, possibly Petty, another dominant center off the board. And then after that, there's a slight drop-off, except for one other center that I feel that Yoke could draft that is just as dominant as those other 2 guys. It's no other than Chris. I think that one of those 2 picks have to be Chris. Played with him, very dominant center. His center actually counteracts with the dominance of the offensive board dominance of some of these other centers. So to me, it would be the best fit because Yodi can really decide whether or not he wants to play shooting guard, small forward, or he wants to go to point guard. So he's a little versatile himself. Doesn't play the power forward center spot, but at least from a guard perspective, you can put him 1, 2, and 3. He can still be effective. So really, what he's going to need is a dominant center. Then after that, me personally, now this pick was very hard because, of course, you could go for another point guard, but I personally think the top of the top point guards will be going. Ajante, Petty, Kyle, Austin's a captain. So I think some of the elite, because there are some really good point guards on the board, but elite point guards will be gone. So if I'm him, I'm going with a 2-way. I'm going with a lock that can space the floor in a game that shooting is very hard. People still trying to figure it out. One guy's got it down pat. Cody. Cody has it down pat. And man, when this comes out, it's gonna be some people gonna get upset. And it's not gonna be because they're upset about where they're getting picked, but they're gonna be upset about me putting people on game. I can see a specific player right now, man, like, really getting mad about me telling this because he probably wants to play with him. So, but to me, I think Cody, man, I haven't seen a better 2-way this year. I have not seen a better 2-way. And of course, him having history with Chris, they get along as well. Because keeping in mind, if you draft Chris, you're gonna have to be specific with the people that you have around him, and they're gonna have to have a understanding on how Chris operates and how very dominant player and knows he's dominant, but is very vocal as well. So you got to have teammates that are going to be able to withstand that and also be able to push back to that when needed to be as well. So that's going around the corner. Then after that, we come back to Josh. Now, Josh, as I mentioned, very versatile player. Petty, he has his point guard. Now, to me, I would go. Now he could easily go center, but once again, the top of the top centers at this point, they're going. So to me, I go 3-and-D again. Cody's going. Not even the next best thing. They're even. It's really just about how you want your chemistry to roll. I'm going Terrence right here. I'm going Terrence. Now you got Petty, Terrence, Josh. All three very high IQ players, very smart players, all defensive forwards, all can get buckets. I mean, just very hard lineup immediately. Terrence also has a power forward that he could play, and play alongside the center that Josh has. I mean, there's a lot of versatility with those three. That to me, that's the route I would go. Then that takes us back to Austin. Now, before last night, this mock draft would have been a little bit different for me. I would have stated something differently. But once this guy joined, to me, it just makes the most sense. It was very hard for me to choose here because there are a lot of other 3-and-D guys. Because if you think about Austin would already have a point in the center at this particular point. And he could easily play lock himself. But there's a guy that I feel like they have history, they have chemistry together. He's another guy that's really, I've seen him really find that jump shot, knocking jumpers down. And that's George. They've played together multiple seasons now. I feel like that to me would make the most sense. Very, very hard pick because there's still a plethora of guys. And you got Rob that he could easily go with as well, who's a 2-time champ, has chemistry, has won both of those championships with Kyle, has history there. But until I see his 3-and-D guy, I just don't know. So for me, at this particular point, I'm going George. Then we drop back down to Keyshawn. Once again, shooting in the dark here, guys. Shooting in the dark when I do this. But I am going to think in the terms of he's already drafted Greg. So what would Greg do? Very, very hard. Very, very hard decision. There are a lot of ways that he could go. But I'm going to stay within that realm of that 3-and-D because it's very, very hard, guys. Very, very hard to find 3-and-D guys that are complete knockdown shooters. Can, going to get you a bunch of steals, get in the lanes. And two of those guys already gone. Terrence, Cody, George. So if I'm Keyshawn and I'm Greg at this point, unless there's somebody I'm missing here, I got to go with the youngin, Martin. I think playing alongside Greg, playing alongside Keyshawn, very smart defensive players as well. I think he could thrive. There is some downside to, and everybody knows, he's a young thoroughbred, right? Those ones just, hard to contain. He's all over the place. One game he could go off and get you 30 and 12 while shooting 60% from the field. And the next game it could be 12 and 5 with 4 turnovers. Reaches himself out of play a lot of times as well. So I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons there, but I think the playing in a structure with two champs, which he just played, just won a championship himself, matter of fact. So I think that will be a very, very good pick for Greg and Greg and Keyshawn, excuse me. And then you kind of go back around, like I said before, it's a snake draft. So then you get back to the top. You get back to the top where you now have Bryant circling back around with Ajante as his number 1 pick. And, needing number 1 defense and also needing buckets as well. Somebody can get some buckets. So I don't think this goes back around with Rob being still on the board. I think Rob is at this point off the board. Someone who can, yes, he has a point guard, but he also has I'm not sure if he make a 2 guard or 3 guard, or a forward. But either way, he's made another bill that can kind of go alongside Ajante, relieve a little bit of pressure for Ajante as well, and being able to really go and get a bucket when you need one. Now, this next one would be hard, right? Because I'm also thinking along the terms of, the style of play that Bullock likes. So you have to be able to buy in as well and fit within what he's looking to do or what he likes to do. So I kind of went around the names here and, I'll go up and down the names, and it's very, very, very hard to find adequate players when it comes to this, right? Because there's a lot of names that are still on the board that at this particular point, that you can go with. He has history with JP, but because of history, I think that you could probably leave him on the board for now. Probably. He has history with B. Ross. And B. Ross, very versatile player. 3-and-D guy as well. So easily could go there. Another player that's been playing very good, lights out, is Hunter, who's been playing power forward, can also play center. Um, but in this instance, I got a feeling, and this is where I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. This is where the thing could go left here. But he could easily, he has a power forward that I think he could get at the bottom of the draft. So in this instance, if I go Rob, at this point I need a two that can knock down a shot. Not to mention that you can add other bills as well. I'm going Line Watkins. I'm going Line Watkins. Another champ. Always been very, very tough when it comes to just being a defender, being a excellent shot maker. He's figured that jump shot out. This is the part, like I said before, the draft gets very, very hard. But I think that Lion and Rob, if they buy in, can be a very, very deadly and all, like I said before, proven team. Very, very hard position to be in having that first pick because so many good guys will be gone by the time it gets back to you. But these guys are super, really, really good players. Like I said, both of them champions, really good players. Then as we kind of go back around, we go back to Keyshawn. And in Keyshawn's case, at that particular moment, you got Greg, as I mentioned before. You got Martin, your 3-and-D guy. Where do you go from there? Where do you go? There's once again, still a bunch of names on the board. But you got to keep in mind, you have Greg on the team. So very, very particular guy as well. But the route I would go is Hunter. Hunter, knockdown shooter, power forward or center to go along with Keyshawn. And so you would have Greg, Keyshawn, and Hunter in your front court, Martin back court. Now all you missing is that last piece on the back end. Already more than a tough, very, very tough team already. Then going from there, you go back to Austin. Austin probably got mad about me saying Hunter right then and there, because maybe he would have probably drafted Hunter to play front court with him. But there's still a bunch of different options out there that he could go with as well to go alongside him, George, and Kyle. Very, very serviceable guys that have also, they're also still there at this particular moment. Yes, you could go that power forward route, or you could still go 3-and-D. So at this point, the guys that pop to mind easily: James, Nebula, B. Ross at this particular moment as well. Which route will he take? He could even say M. Will. He's joined the club. He can even say South Beach, baby. And because of the defense, the rebounding, the willing to sacrifice, a guy that's never going to get too high, too low, at that particular moment, he drafts Neil. Couldn't get his hand on Hunter, but he did get Neil. He does get Neil if he wants. Then, of course, it doesn't bode well for the next pick, which is Josh. who probably would have went Neil. But as I mentioned before, you still got James. You still got B. Ross. Now, James has made a point guard this year. Is he willing to forego that for Petty? James is a team player. I think he would. But does he go B. Ross? You know, me once again, I'm doing a mock draft here. We have Petty. We have Terrence. And at this particular point, the versatility of a B. Ross that could play 2, 3, 4, or your 5, your center, which the versatility that fits the versatility of your Josh, who could then, I don't want to play the 5. I want to play the 4. I don't want to play the 4. I want to play the 3. Because you already got your backcourt. You got Petty. You got Terrence. That's going to be deadly. So to me, at this particular point, I go B. Ross, which then bring back to Yodi at this point. He's already got his big. He's got Chris, dominant. He has Cody, lock, dominant. Now this is where it gets tricky because on one end, does he want to play point? You know, and you guys probably thinking like, man, like that's it. Ain't no more points on the board. What are we talking about here? Well, there's not. There's still another point on the board. Doesn't play with us as much, but more than a serviceable guy. That's Vince. Vince can go get you a bucket. I haven't played with him this year, so I don't know. Knockdown shooter, all those different things. But I think what will probably play a factor into him not getting picked would be the fact that he's not in the chats as much. He doesn't play with the group as much, so there's no scouting there. Nobody knows what he plays like. Nobody, what's his schedule like when we try to schedule practices? What's his schedule like when we try to schedule games? So because of that, I don't know if he'll get picked, but I like to throw that name out there because that's more than a serviceable point guard that can play off ball and knock down shots as well, and a very, very smart player, not going to make too many mistakes. But I digress. At this particular point, let's say Yo plays the point. Let's say he plays the point. So then from there, you got your lock, you got your big. Now you need to fill some spots up, right? You need your front court filled up at this particular moment, right? Once again, a lot of names that are still on the board. One of those names being his brother himself, Cognac. You also got Ahmad that's on the board at this point. You got Uzi, very, very smart player in Uzi on the board. You got Django. You got Brax. You got Will Too Smooth. Twizzy. A lot of names. A lot of names that are still on the board. JP, M. Will. So at this particular moment, excluding myself because at this particular moment, I don't think that I don't think I'd be on the board at this point. Yeah, just kidding. But anyway, I'll still be on the board. I probably won't get drafted. But from this moment, you got to ask a few questions here of which route you want to go. Keeping in mind that you do have a very dominant personality on your team, so you have to be wise in figuring that out. So for me, at this particular point, one of those picks I go in with. Very, very, and that's the hard part because you can go in with, you can't go Uzi because Uzi has a center. I don't know if he has a power forward. So if there is one there, then maybe so. But at this particular moment, I go Uzi. I think Uzi, not Uzi, I'm sorry, excuse me. I go M. Will. I think M. Will, very serviceable, very reliable guy. Gonna set the screens, get the rebounds, do everything that you need him to do to win, because you need those glue guys. Guys, you need those glue guys. Now, who do you go now? Who do you go now? Look at the list. Look at the list. You look at the list. I just can't put Cognac and Chris on the same team. So this is a mock draft. I'm trying to think along the terms of what Yote would think. And shoot, I mean, Yodi and Cognac can't play on the same team. So if that's the case, I go with someone who's going to be under the radar. He may not know this guy as much, so he actually may not go this route. But this is the route I'm just throwing out there because I think he's more than a serviceable player. And that's Will Too Smooth. Will Too Smooth at this particular moment would be very, very serviceable shooting guard, small forward to go alongside him and Cody as a very great defensive player. Is going to stay in the lanes. He's going to be communicating as well. As a smart, very, very, very smart player. So then from there we go back down the line, and we got Josh's last pick here, right? To go with the people he's picked so far. Now, at this particular moment, yes, you got JP still on the board. James still on the board. Twizzy still on the board. This is where the mock draft gets a little tough. But at this moment, I go Paid Uzi. I put him at the 5. I got B. Ross. I got Josh. I got T. I got Petty. 1, 2, and 3, we locking up. We clamping. We're clamping. Austin. Once again, very, very tough lineup. You got your Neil. You got your George. You got your Kyle. Right? Where does he go? A lot of different names still out there once again. And I'll be honest with you, I can't remember when I did this draft. I should have wrote it down. I can't remember if I put J-Neb on it. I can't remember if I said he got drafted already. If I did not, J-Neb is drafted. Matter of fact, I didn't. I say Neb is willing to come off point, go to a lock build, and because of that, he gets drafted by Austin, which then brings me back to Keyshawn. Keyshawn has some history. Greg is on the team. And I'm just going to jump out there and say he drafts Johnny Fly to play the 4. I take that back. I don't know well, you know what? I'm going to stay with that. I'm going to say Johnny Fly comes off the board. And the last pick, and this is no shade, no tea here. Last pick of the draft. You got to go JP right there. Very, very serviceable, proven champion now at this point, 3-and-D guy. And now a more than good player, knockdown shooter. Haven't played with him much this year, but to me is a very, very good player to go with. So just joining us here is one of the captains one of the captains, Bryant. What's up, Bryant? I am just finished up my mock draft. I can't explain to you how the mock draft went at this particular point. You'll just have to listen in. But I felt like I selected you a pretty good team, pretty good team. But you're going to catch us on the next episode where we're going to talk a little bit more about the direction of the league, the direction of where this particular captain wants to go with his team. Hey, let me know what y'all think, man. Let's talk about it in the chat. Where did I go wrong? Who went too low? Who went too high? Did I not think about this the right way? I mean, you guys let me know. And then, hey, let's drop some mock drafts, man. Let's drop some mock drafts. Let's see what's going on. Let's see where everybody feels like people should go. Me personally, it's not just a skill thing. I also think in the terms of fit. I also think in the terms of philosophy. I think in the terms of IQ. I think who fits, who doesn't match or mesh with each other on or off the court. So there's a lot of things that go into it. But you guys, tell me what you think. Watch Your Narrative, episode 1 presents the league.